have the honor of starting this program, I want to maybe just say a few words about what actually we're doing and why this advocacy and accountability forum is so important, and something that frankly will help us do better what we are doing, course correct, give us feedback, and allow us to improve the programs we're launching. The vision, I think, is clear. The vision is that, as our President, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, has stated, is that he wants Ghana to be the most business-friendly environment in Africa. So that vision is very clear. We're not planning to be in the second division of Africa. We're not planning to be the third or fourth, for those of you that support some of these football teams that are third or fourth. Our intention is to be the most business, the best. So to do that, it requires us to do the best and to run faster than the others, as Nana was saying, and understand that we live in a globally competitive environment. But we're also clear on one thing. We've been down this journey before. We were much higher. I remember when I was in the GIPC, going through a very similar program, and Ghana was in the upper echelon. We are 2 years in a row with the top 10, one of the top 10 best, most reforming countries in the world. And we slipped. So that tells us that it's not a question of whether or not we can't go through the reform, but something happens when we do it. We seem to slip back again, for whatever reason. So it means we have to take a little time to understand, do we have the building blocks? Have we put in place the building blocks to ensure once we make change, the change remains? It doesn't go backwards, but we improve on the change. We develop, we advance, we innovate. And so that is very important for us to bear in mind. So I want to set for you a scene, a scenario. I think Nana Osebonsu paid it very well. So let's start with our economy. 86% of our businesses are not measured. 86%. So they're there. We know they're there. We can see them. You and I engage with them every day of the week. But in the statistics, it's a rounding. It's an estimate. So that's the first point. Of the ones that do actually go and register, about 90+% of them are MSMEs, micro and small businesses, which account for over 80% of our formalized manufacturing employment and 70% of our GDP. Now, if I was in any business, if I look at the multimedia group, if you are not measuring and managing 70% of your revenue or your partners very well, you cannot manage your business. So it tells us that we need to look very carefully at our building blocks. And that is why within the Ministry of Trade and Industry, led by my minister, Honorable Alan Shrimanting, he put together a team, he asked me to lead that team, which looked at ensuring that the building blocks were put in place. Now, it's not done just by Moti, because that is not realistic. It's cross-sectorial. Because business is not just rest in the home of Ministry of Trade and Industry. So let me talk about some of the building blocks that may not necessarily gel with people's minds, but are important. So how many of us in this room? About 50 people. Is it possible for us to uniquely identify everybody in this room? Currently. Outside the Ghana card, no. How do you set up any system of monitoring if you can hold 5 different IDs that may have different base? So it's important for us to start with it may sound very simple, but that's the reality. That's why the Ghana card, the National Identification System, is critical. Now let me draw you a little line for that, for instance, business registration. If I know where you are, where you live, and who you are, there are assumptions I can make when I'm registering your business that I don't have to double check because somebody else has done it. But if I have to check every single step of the way, I'm basically doing the work of every other agency instead of doing what I should be doing, which is just registering and giving you a unique number to run your business. But I have to check you are who you are. Do you live where you live? I can't even find you. So the digital national ID system is important. I'm talking about the building blocks now. I'm painting a scenario and why maybe in the past we've done these things and slipped right back again. The other important thing is our proverbial Ghanaian direction, how to get to somebody's house. Can we find ourselves? Do we know where we live? So going past the Kenke cellar, the second on the left, the place where they make the best mutuo in East Legon, because I have a particular passion for that, is an important factor. But the digital address system becomes, again, very, very important. These are basic stumbling blocks you must have if you're going to have any system that allows you to regulate and use efficiency. In the absence of those things, you can't have efficiency, because everybody does everybody else's job for them. And whether instead of taking account that you are who you are, we know where you are, and that's all I need, so let me just do my job of just giving you registration or pay your taxes in terms of where you are. So that becomes another important factor. Another building block is the albatross that we've all lived with all our life, which is land registration. It is an albatross. Let's call it for what it is. The digitization, I don't know how many leaps we've had. I think we're on the third or fourth reiteration of LAP, sorry, not LEAP. That's the education. How many iterations we have of the LAP system? But that is why the digitization process of that also becomes important, because if you cannot tell where you are, the first things your business talk about is access to finance. And if the banks can't tell who you are, if you own it or not, then how are they ever going to give you money? So these are specific building blocks. So we can sit there and say access to finance is a challenge. But if we can't tell people where they live and who they are, then how do you expect those things to happen? So those building blocks are very, very important. I want to add one more to it, which is modernization of digital banking. The ability to be able to pay across all platforms, including our phone. These may seem very simple things, but they form the backbone of systems that we have to do. So I've painted a scenario. We have a large section of our economy, 70% of it, which are MS. I didn't say even medium is a stretch, but it's basically micro and small. And then I'll say, would I be right in saying that? It's basically micro and small. And they're not, so we are creating a policy to touch them when we don't have a means to touch them. I don't know if I'm explaining myself. We're creating a whole policy to help them, but the way to touch them is not there because they're not connected into a system that we can easily work with. So again, another building block that we had to engage, which is we've launched recently a micro and small medium scale enterprise policy. One of the most first stars in that policy is to define what is an MSME. Now that may seem like, again, a very simple process, but that's important. We define what is an informal business. An informal business, in this definition, we had the discussion, is a business that is not in any form or manner captured within, let's say, the system, be it tax, be it all sorts of taxation, registration of forms. So it's important for us to go there, because if we can engage that, then we add to that. One of the points, I think, I believe was Issa was talking about, that one of the biggest issue in turning we want to do is move to formalize our economy. We need to turn that 86 into formal. But if the formalization process is in itself scary, because the day you become formal, you get visits from 16 different agencies of government, then nobody's ever going to become formal. But when you have a policy, you can have a graduation process of the formalization of businesses. So it becomes important for us to realize that these building blocks are critical to ensure that when we this time go through the programs and reforms, we don't come back a decade later and find ourselves back where we started and trying to climb up again, because that just doesn't work for me. When that happens, you change the football manager. And I guess that's what happened. Because that's the nature of what we have to do. So I've tried to paint, and that is why this is so important, this role. Because the advocacy and accountability is important, because then we can bring all those agencies we're working with to start talking about what they're doing. Get feedback, and I'm glad to hear it's not just in English. We're also going to do Chi. I have challenge in Ga and some of the other ones, but I will try my best to be communicated in all the different languages we can. So having said some of those building blocks, let me talk about what it is that also we've been doing over the past 2 years. The building blocks were important, and without those, we can't do the other. If we cannot know exactly with the Ghana card, everybody and where, by the way, the Ghana card includes a number of things. For instance, tax identification number. tin is a bane in most people's rear because it becomes so important in the sense that everybody needs it now, but the generation becomes a challenge. But if I know who you are as a person, then I can easily, because I've got your 10 digits and iris, you have a unique number. Nobody can replicate these 10 digits and an iris. So even in the business registration process, if I know that the Ghana card is there, because that card already has a tin embedded in it, then can you imagine what that happens to business registration? The formality is in a couple of hours, because that's what it should be, not even in half a day or a day in terms of where it is. So we have put to place a policy that covers 7 key areas. And it's 7 because no one is going to address the issues. The world is not that simple. No one particular survey is going to capture in it everything that reports or that is important for our country. So first thing we are doing, the first bucket of that reform looks at ensuring that in the various different rankings, depending what we want to do, we are represented appropriately. So the World Bank doing business is one of them, but it's not the only one. There's a Global Competitiveness Index we're very interested in. We have West African Competitive Index we're very interested in. We're interested in how much FDI comes into the country. As you were so happy to hear, I'm sure that last year we were the largest FDI in West Africa. I repeat, in West Africa. I will leave it there. There are various areas, should we call, outward-looking reports that we want to ensure we are represented at the right place. World Bank is one of them because it's limited in terms of what it measures. And we will work on that. Committees made up of an average of 15 to 20 different agencies of government looking at things like business registration. We mapped out the process. We benchmarked it. And then we put everybody together and say, okay, if we want to be the most business-friendly in Africa, we need to go from X to Y. And it's not a question of if we are going. The question is, how do we get there? And ensuring certain things are done. But that's, again, it's a journey what we engaged in. And that journey, I think, as very well explained by Nana Frimpoma, is a journey we have to go, and it comes, and I see that as one of the key opportunities on this accountability and advocacy, to bring some of the agencies here and let us talk about one of each of these to see what is happening, how can we improve it, feedback, and so forth in terms of where it is. But that's one of them. The second one, I'll just go through a couple of them for today, not all of them. The second one is we're going to register all of the business regulations we have in this country. We actually do not have one single depository of all the laws, all the letters that are written by ministers and deputies and people that then become law, they're not really law, but become practices. We don't have a registry of these somewhere. They need to sit somewhere. So if I am involved in the media business, I need to know what are all the regulations that are associated with media. If I'm in the hospitality business, what are all the regulations associated with the hospitality industry? So we're clear. That is then put on a electronic portal that you can look at from your home. Again, this is not rocket science. This is done in Europe. Many European EU does it. A number of other countries do it, but we want to have it here so that we can make use of also technology to help us in our journey. One of the other areas I want to talk about, which goes back to the journey I mentioned where we were here 10 years ago saying one thing, today we're something different. We're going to introduce into future changes in the law, once we've sanitized that depository. There's a terminology, but the effective what it means is that before any law is changed, public, you, the business environment, has to be informed and your feedback has to be brought in before the law can be changed. So we as politicians can't sit, dream up an idea. I was going to give an example, but I won't. Dream up an idea and just suddenly put it out there, and then you find out 3 months later the currency is devaluated by 40%. Those things are not going to happen, because the nature of these is that it's effectively a means of ensuring that there is correspondence, there is discussions, there is feedback with those that are going to affect to ensure they can engage. That's an important factor. I just want to mention 2 other areas. One of the other areas we think is also very important is to ensure that we are voted as in to do the work for you, serve you, have the ability to initiate things for us to do. in a sense that you can initiate areas, and I know in the UK, for instance, if you get something like 50,000 votes or I think 70,000 votes, it has to be debated in Parliament. These are important. You have to have the ability to originate, be it individually or as a group, to bring back to the center, to the government to engage. Another very important aspect is what we call the public-private dialogue. Now, this is important, and this is a very good example of that. It is not just we talk to each other once every 4 years when we go into election, but it's important that once we set out what it is we want to do as a government, we have the ability to formally follow that. So it starts with a presidential summit, sectorial based. We'll get feedback, we'll set the policies, all those things we've talked about, the 1D, 1Fs, all the rest of it, we'll put in front of the private sector, all the agencies of government, free HSS, you name it what it is, we'll talk together and understand from a business perspective some KPIs, key performance indicators, both from you, the private sector, and us, government, so that as we go along this journey, we're going together. And that becomes an important addition to what we need to do. I was interested to hear about some of the linkages on the 4 that was chosen: commercial courts, customs, tax administration, business registration. You know, I want to give you a very small but very practical example. There is a company here that has invested over $80 million in this country. They're looking for another 300 acres to invest another $140 million. The 300 acres, which is next to where they are, suddenly they realize a group has come to say the land belongs to them. Now, this is a reality. I use this as an example because this is something we're dealing with right now as we speak. But this is a reality of what we engage with. But it also sends a message, and I think that's where I would like to end my discussions on. Because though we see some of those indicators showing that we are not where we want to be, we should also not underestimate what we have achieved. I think one of the most exciting prospects as I sit here and I look at, for instance, Nanose, Bunsu, and PEF. Yesterday, we all read this morning, we had a visit from Renault. Renault head came to see His Excellency the President. They are looking at putting a plant here, assembly plant. That means we could be 5, 6, 7 automobile assembly plants in Ghana. Now that to me says one thing: business opportunities. Why? Because we know 70 to 80% of all the inputs that goes into Volkswagen, Nissan, Sinotruk, and Renault is not made by Renault or Nissan or Sinotruk. It's made by SME businesses. So it tells me that the Ghanaian business men and women should be sitting up saying, hold on a minute, there's opportunities coming down the road. What can we do? What should we be talking to our government about? And I know this is something that PEF is very keen on, to engage. So while we may 114 the Global World Bank doing business, it's not the only measurement. The measurement is hard cash. That is why FDI last year we were the biggest. We need to balance out. We need to make sure we compare apples with apples. Make sure that when we do, and that is why we have 7 different multi-sectorial approach to this thing. No one jacket fits every one of us. Just not possible. So it's important as we're going through these advocacy and accountability, we realize that there is no such thing as a one fix. If our interest is in the integrated aluminium industry, it requires a different international, commercial-based regulatory environment than if I want to go and do garments and textiles, because that's a distinct industry. Now, those two happen to be industries we want to focus on. So, as we look forward as a country to make changes to where we want to be, it has to be based on where we want to go, not a ubiquitous blanket across the board. It's just not possible. So I may be the best, but I'd rather be the worst if I can attract all these companies to come and put all the businesses I want in this country and ensure that my SMEs are part of that value chain, because that's what makes a real difference for us. So it's important for us to remember that though we have challenges in going through, I would rather be in the position we are today, where we have these businesses coming and we have an opportunity to put our home in order, our businesses, support them so that they can take center stage as we build the pie. as to grow the pie, because that is the bottom line, what we're trying to do. I want to again take this opportunity to congratulate all the team in what they're doing. From the Ministry of Trade and Industry, we will come, we will defend, we will listen, we will have a good debate, we will go back, we will make changes when we've done it wrong, we will listen and make sure that we would address where we haven't gone where we should go. I look forward to a robust dialogue in terms of the accountability and ensuring that those that have to deliver for you, from our side at least, will make sure we're here to answer the question. With that, I look forward to the next steps. Thank you.